Hey everybody, it's Josh, KI6NAZ, and I wanted to talk to you today about emergency communications, specifically for hurricanes. Hurricanes can present some interesting struggles in that you know they're coming, which is a good thing, but you know they're coming, which is a bad thing, meaning stores sell out relatively quickly, and that can mean for things like communication items, like blister pack radios, and other things that we're going to talk about shortly. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, this is the ham radio guy, he's going to go tell me to get a license, etc., etc. Not true. We're going to talk, in the beginning at least, about things you should be doing if you don't have a license, and they're pretty effective. So the first thing, the ubiquitous cell phone, gotta have one. If you have comms, if the internet is up, and that's a form of comms, then you're pretty good to go. Use text messaging, that gets out better if there is some issues, but generally this is the happier times of hurricane communication, so if you're there, you're probably not that bad off. But what if it gets worse? So one of the simplest, easiest things you can have, a lot of people have them, are emergency radios. This is a Cerritos Voyager. Now this is the K500 model in case you're looking on Amazon, and links for all the products will be in the description. This is a crank radio. It has weather radio, which is really important. It does AM, FM, and single band. It has a couple different single band bands that it operates on. Functions off of solar, kind of. More to talk about that. Crank, all kinds of good stuff. It'll charge the batteries on your phone, but you can receive with it, which is important for information on the radio when the internet goes down. Now, last step on the receiver side before we move on to two-way communication. This is a PL660 made by Texsun. This does very, very similar things to the Cerritos. Big distinction though, this does single sideband, so this will allow you to tune into the 20-meter amateur radio band for the hurricane net, which is a very good place to be because hams are going to get communication out faster than anyone. They're going to be faster than the news, particularly the AM radio stations. Ham radio, I just had to look that up. I'm in California, we don't have hurricanes. The hurricane watch net is 14.325. That's 20 meters, single sideband. PL660 is a great radio. Little spendy, over $100 in some cases, but you get a lot of capability with that money. The next two options, blister pack FRS radios and a GoTenna type mesh device. I just realized I'm using a green screen. This is green. Hold on. FRS blister pack radios are a great option. They're a channelized analog radio with a couple miles of propagation to them. So you'll be able to talk to people on the channels. You don't know who you're necessarily going to talk to, but if you have a couple of these, you can give them to your family. A lot of them have what's called privacy tones, so you can set privacy tones to only hear the people you want to hear, which can be helpful if there's a lot of chatter going on and you need to help someone get to your home, or you need to get to someone, or you need to whatever. There's lots of reasons why you need to have something like this. And if you're a ham radio operator, you should still have some of these. Next option, the GoTenna Mesh. This one is currently looking for its phone. The GoTenna Mesh makes a wireless mesh network between other devices that are GoTenna mesh devices, and it basically gets bigger and bigger and bigger as the more of them you add into its sphere of propagation. This doesn't do voice, but it does do text messaging. It does do location via the GPS on your phone. It has lots of neat capability, like clicking this thing 5 times will begin to send an emergency beacon to all the other GoTennas that can receive it. Very helpful in an emergency, and it might help you find people who are hurt, people you know, people you love, etc. So these are probably more spendier. This is actually way more spendier. Two of these I think is $175, but you get some phone capability with that, which is nice. And what's cool about these guys is if there's enough of them in your area and you don't have cell phone reception, but you add 2 miles and 2 miles and 2 miles and 2 miles until, you know, 6 of these guys away from you, someone does have cell phone connection, your text messages that you send to family and friends outside of the disaster area can hop, 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 and get out. Pretty cool. So once you decide, hey, that's all good, I've got my local comms covered for two-way communication, and I've got my incoming communication like on the ham radio 20-meter hurricane watch if you're using a single sideband receiver, and your emergency radio using the weather channels, then you're like, but I kind of want to step that up. The next step would be VHFUHF handy talkies in the amateur band range of functionality. So cheap all the way on one end is the Baofeng. You got to have a license if you want to transmit, but you can receive on them, and it's frequency based communications instead of channel-based communication. So you type in a frequency and you can talk on that frequency. Or, in the case of these guys, there's likely repeaters in your area which are like really big radios on hilltops that receive your signal and amplify it and send it out on another frequency so that you can talk to a lot of people. Very, very handy for emergency responders. They use repeaters. They use radios. Not exactly like this. They use digital radios. A little bit more like this guy. This is a digital radio, but the reason I mentioned this one, this is a Yaesu FT2DR. It has GPS capability, meaning that it can send out your location, your heading, some sensor information like speed and elevation, and you can send text messages with this. Text messages that can be received by other radios and then sent on to family and friends. It can also email. It can even tweet. The last two items, the handy-talkie amateur radio devices, those require a technician class license, which you should get. I have a series of videos on that. I'll post it in the cards and in the description. All the products I've reviewed, I will put links in the description. Last thing, it's a little late for hurricanes coming up right now, but if you have some time and you're future planning for next year, you should think about not just getting your technician class license, but getting your general class license. Your general license allows you to communicate on the amateur radio HF, high frequency bands. That is the, if you're driving down the road and you see a really tall antenna on somebody's roof, that's most likely an HF antenna. That's what gives you countrywide, in some cases, in some better sun cycle situations, worldwide communication. Now, when we're talking about the HF net that's on amateur radio on 20 meters, like I mentioned before, that's going to have a very wide capability. Lots of people will be listening, lots of people will be participating, and if you are truly in need, it's a very good place to be able to not just receive, like we've already talked about, but transmit. And the only way you're going to do that is if you get an HF transceiver. Now, I myself have an ICOM 7300. A lot of people do these days. It's kind of the up-and-coming new radio. It's a full software-defined radio. I know I'm talking nerdy for you guys that are not really in this hobby. I hope I haven't lost you so far. But with it and with a proper antenna, not necessarily a large antenna or an expensive one, you're able to communicate the widest of all the communication options that we have talked about today. So I hope that's helpful. I hope you're not caught in a situation where you truly need these devices to, you know, self-rescue when you're calling for help to bring somebody in, or go out and help others. But not having it is not an excuse. So do think about adding some layers of communication to your hopefully robust preparedness at this point, if you already haven't thought about doing so. And please subscribe to the channel. I stream every Friday or Saturday in some cases, depending on my schedule, and we talk about all things ham radio. I have the ham radio crash course on Facebook and Discord. We have a Reddit, and I've got the Patreon where I release a monthly newsletter that talks about radio communication, not just of amateur radio, of all kinds, and we welcome everybody in, really inclusive, so hopefully you come and join us and check it out. So that'll do it. This is Josh, KI6NAZ, also known as Hashnasi, and see ya.